Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats. The show is about to begin.
And hello and welcome to episode 140 of On The Bench, the podcast for scale modelers by scale modelers, all about scale models. And we've got a great show for you this fortnight. We have got a special guest in to talk about what it takes to run a large model show. I think you'll find that very exciting, as will I. Of course, we've got the Falcon riding in with what's new in the modelling world, and we've got some listener mail. But first, I want to take this opportunity to thank all of our wonderful Patreon supporters who, without their support, it would make this show incredibly difficult. If you too would like to support the show, you can do so by going to www.patreon.com/onthebench and pledge any amount from as little as $1 per month upwards. All of your contributions are greatly appreciated and just help us with our hosting costs for the show. And hello and welcome to the show. And in the studio I've got Ian.
G'day Dave, g'day Julian, g'day listeners.
And of course Julian.
Good morning.
And our special guest, Laurence Farrugia.
Good morning, how are you?
And Laurence has come to join the show because he's going to be talking about Model Expo 2022, and perhaps we're going to delve into the pros and cons of running a hobby show.
Oh, geez. How long have you got?
We got heaps of time, but we'll save that for later. I think what we'll do first of all, we'll catch up with what everybody's been doing. So Ian, what have you been up to?
Well, I finally bit the bullet and stripped the paint off the Key 44.
Yeah.
Since I was not happy with these ghost seams that appeared at the bottom. And puttied that up. And since I had nothing else to do, I decided to make a start on the Copper State Models Lanchester.
Oh, very good.
So,
and coming along nicely?
Yeah.
Excellent.
Copper State Model, they're so much fun to build, those kits. Those armoured car kits are so much fun to build. They just fall together.
Lovely.
They're beautiful kits.
Lovely. Julian.
Hang on.
Oh.
And I got in the mail.
Oh, yes. Tell us what you got in the mail,
I got
Ian.
in the mail. I got an envelope that came all the way from our friends in Canada.
Yes.
From Anthony Goodman.
Yes.
From Goodman's Models.
Yes.
If you all recall, the very first Musaru Cup, I had to build that Gundam Jar Jar, whatever it was called, the red robot.
That's right.
And that ended up staying in Canada. And this year, unbeknownst to me, it was entered in Heritage Con.
Wow.
And I picked up a silver medal.
Wow. Well, there you go.
So I have my first international trophy.
Woohoo!
So, yeah, very happy about it. The first I knew about it when I got a message from Anthony saying, "Oh, just to let you know, I think you've just won silver placing." So, what? I didn't even know I entered.
Well, that's fantastic.
So yeah, very happy, very chuffed.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And you should be.
Got a nice silver medal with a Canadian flag lanyard.
So you're now an intercontinental model winner.
Well, yeah, I suppose. a placer, not a winner, a placer.
Well, second's a win.
That's a placing.
Yeah.
First is a win.
Oh, well, now we're just going to crack Omaha now.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, I finally got me Perspex, so I can get, so hard finding a small enough piece of Perspex that wasn't going to break the bank. I tried everywhere. Bunnings even, like they had like bits of about A4. They were selling for about $45, $50 for a little bit of A4, bit of Perspex. It's like,
Holy
no
moly.
way.
Really?
Yeah, and I was bitching to me boss about it this week, and he goes, "You do realise around the corner there's a Perspex supplier that usually helps us out." So I went around there and I spoke to the guy and I told him what I wanted to make, a box so I can put a model ship in to take it overseas. And he goes, "Yeah, come back in an hour." So I went back in an hour and I got an A4 sheet of 3mm clear.
Oh, way to
for
go.
Nothing.
Perfect.
I said, "What do you owe for this?" He goes, "Just take it, mate. It's just an offcut." Thank you. So that means I don't have to continually take the ship out of the box every time I go through. Hopefully I don't have to take it out of the box. And when I go through customs, I can just go, "Look, there's the clear side. You can see what's in this box."
Well, it's not customs. It's the security dudes you got to clear going through the gates.
So it's an actual ship model.
Yeah.
A 1/350 scale ship.
A bottle.
No.
Yeah. Be a big bottle. Oh, that'd be scary, having to pull that mast down and then redo all the rigging in a bottle.
So, Julian,
Yes.
what you been up to?
Oh, let's see. What was I up to? So I did cut a few masks on my silhouette.
Our
Cutter.
silhouette.
Yeah. That's right. I always forget that other people help pay for that. Yeah. Yeah, well, I'm the one that's doing all the work. So, in any case, I did that for a few of our club members. I also painted up a few bits of stowage and stuff for a kit that I'm entering in Expo this year. I was originally designed for specifically that, but I'd forgotten about it. And I was like, I can get that over the finish line just before Expo. So I did. Pulled my finger out and I did that. Other than that, not too much.
Cool.
Yeah, not too much.
Well, you, Dave, what have you been working on?
Oh, I'm just sort of moseying along with that rocket that I'm still building. It's not going to be for Expo. But the other thing I've been doing is obviously getting all of my entries ready for Expo and filling out the registration form, which is a new online registration form, which we'll talk about later on in the show. That's pretty much it. So, yeah, not a great deal. Mm-hmm. Not a great deal. Laurence, what's on your bench at the moment?
Got two things, which is very unusual because I'm one of these really weird modelers that I'll build one subject, start it, and when it's finished and go in a cabinet, that's the only time I pick up the next model. So I'm not one of these people who has 20 on the go at once.
I wish I had the discipline for that.
Look, it gets difficult sometimes, but so on my desk I've got a Hasegawa 48 scale Skyhawk. So I'm actually doing an Argentinian Skyhawk. Seeing it's been 40 years since the Falklands.
Yeah, 100%, yeah.
So that'll be one of the ones in the brown and green scheme with the yellow ID marks. There's such a plethora of colour schemes for their Skyhawks through that whole conflict. So that's on the bench. It's pretty much constructed. I've got an Aries cockpit put into it, which was a little bit of a fight to get it in there.
They are, aren't they?
They are.
The Aries do some really nice stuff, but geez, you've really got to battle like anything to get them to fit.
Yeah, I've had some, though, I've got to say, where they've just plugged straight in and absolutely awesome. But this one put up a little bit of fight. But it's all in there. It's almost at the point where it's about to start receiving paint. So,
cool.
all the bits that are interior bits that are painted red and masked up and so forth. So
I've got a book that I'll let you borrow. It's from the Argentine point of view of the war, of the air war.
Yeah, is that the one done by Hikoki?
No.
Okay, because Hikoki did a great book on it. It's an Argentinian publication.
Oh, maybe it is by the same dude.
Yeah, could be.
Yeah.
Could be. We'll have a look.
We'll have a look.
Yeah. But so there's that. And the only thing I've got, which I can't really say I'm building, it's a model I've had sitting in the cabinet for quite a long time, and it's one of the Maschinenkrieger Fireball armoured suits.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, I got the Fireball. Is it the Hasegawa reboxing or the original Nito?
No, the original Nito.
Ooh.
Yeah.
It's funny how they've had such a resurgence in the last 12 months. It seems to, you know, you look at Facebook now and bang, there's Machine Krieger stuff everywhere now.
Yeah. It's been steady, but it's really starting to come into its own again.
Yeah. It really has helped things that they've got someone like Lincoln Wright.
Oh, yeah. And his new book that he's just about ready to release, Yeah.
And he's such a character too, that guy.
So I ended up refurbishing the paint job was horrible and faded on it, so I ended up stripping it all down. It was built years and years ago, so it's got some seam issues and stuff.
Yeah,
cleaned it up as best I could, and then painted it, dug up some spares, decals and so forth. So that's close to be ready mounted onto a base at the moment. See,
I can't do that. I can't go back and strip and redo. I'd just start with a new subject, or if I wasn't happy with what Ian's had issues with, I'd just bin the kit and start from scratch again.
Yeah. Look, normally I would.
I can't. It's weird. I don't know why. I just can't do it.
Yeah. Look, this is probably one of the first models I've actually restored.
Yeah.
Normally, as one of the guys in one of the clubs I know, the model will go under the Hammer of Thor.
Yes.
In the bin. So I've had a few go that way. But yeah, this is the first one. Only because the Fireball, the original Nito boxings are so hard to find.
Yep.
Extremely expensive as well, and I thought,
aren't they ever?
Yeah.
You look at them on eBay and they're going for hundreds of dollars. It's like,
wow. Yeah.
But you can't use any of the decals.
No.
That's what I found. All the decals are all mine, they're that old that they will not release from the backing paper. They just are. They're permanently on there. So you got to scrounge up decals from somewhere else.
Yeah, so maybe it was the miser in me with this particular subject. Plus, it was my first Nido MAK kit.
Yep.
So there was a sentimental attachment to it. So
Yes.
so that's almost ready, as I said, to go onto a base.
Very cool.
So, but everything's been literally parked for the last 6 weeks and hasn't progressed because everything's just focused on Expo.
Yep.
Cool.
More important things.
Oh, absolutely, 100%. All right, well, how about we have a look at some listener mail that's popped in. I haven't got a great amount, but there's still quite a few that came through. Dave Waples writes in and says, docents are museum volunteers who tell you about the ship and everything else that's going on at the park. Last time I was there, they had a few retired sailors who did an excellent job explaining the ship and her function. The training sub USS Marlin is also an interesting subject which you can crawl around. Can't believe how quickly the Nationals are coming up and looking forward to seeing you guys there, from Dave Waples.
Same with us, Dave. Look forward to catching up.
Oh, very excited. Of course, Dave is somebody who enjoys building ship models, so...
Does he ever?
Yes.
He does a great job too.
He does, yeah. I'll pass on that one. Ryan Hothersall writes in, at last, the On The Bench crew are being dragged back to the real world when they won't buy that kit they wanted because they think it's too expensive.
Oh, was that referring to me?
Yes, it is, Ian.
Well, look, I'm not saying I won't buy it. I'm just not buying it yet. And that's the new P40, the 32nd scale P40 from Great Wall. Because $230 is a lot of money to fork out.
Which is really interesting because you spent a lot of money on that Japanese carrier.
Yeah, it was over $1,200.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Once you finished with all the aftermarket stuff.
And I spent 3 times as much on the aftermarket as I did for the damn kit. Which, as ship builders, we know.
Well, a carrier these days is going to set you back. If you can get a carrier in 1/350 scale for, under or for around $300, you're doing well. Yeah. And then you got all the aftermarket stuff on top of that. So,
mind you, that little 3D, I've recently purchased. You ever heard of 3D Wild, Laurence?
No, I haven't heard of them.
They're an American 3D printing company, and they do 1/350 scale Japanese aircraft carriers.
Wow!
And I bought, was it the Fujo? I think the Fujiku or something, a small Japanese Jeep carrier, about $160 shipped, and it is amazing. It is, everything is just 3D printed, holes in 3 pieces.
Are they open to suggestions on subjects and stuff like that, or they've got to focus on a particular niche?
No, he's open. He's open on a lot of stuff. He's recently done the Ark Royal, I think.
Okay.
Pre-1941.
Yeah, because obviously from my personal interest, from my heritage, I've been always wanting to build a 1/350 scale of the tanker, the Ohio.
Yeah, the Ohio, yes.
And
what a story.
Oh, yeah, yeah. And there's also a carrier. There's the modern British one. I'm just trying to think of its name. Illustrious. But the World War II Illustrious in 350 scale, nobody's touched it all.
Yeah, that's what I found too. No one has done a late war Pacific British carrier. And that's what I'm waiting for.
Yeah. I think what the manufacturers do, because there's another subject that's also in niche with Operation Pedestal and stuff, which is the USS Wasp.
Yes.
But because they were single ship classes, what you can produce is you can't do 6 boxings with all the different named ships that belong to the family.
Yeah, like an Essex class
one,
or something.
So you get one retail item out of your moulds. The tanker Ohio would be the same. There was only the Ohio and the Kentucky, which was its sister ship, which got sunk on an earlier convoy to Malta. So that's probably looking at them because they're running a business, and what can they market and how many sales can they get out of their investment. So that makes it a bit hard. But all these 3D companies that are popping up, it's so hard to keep up with them, and they're doing some great work.
Oh, yeah. And amazing work.
Well, even I picked up the shoe schlepper from Gas Patch, the 48 scale vehicle that picks up the 163 Comet.
Yep, with the big airbags.
No, it's the lever arm.
Oh, the lever
one.
arm, not the airbag one.
And that's all 3D printed, and it's commercially available as a kit. And you sort of open it up and you think, is this 3D printed resin? It has to be because it's not plastic.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And that's commercial availability. On a big scale. So hats off to them.
Totally agree.
David Haddican writes in, Dave, Ian, of course, Julian, thought I'd get in touch following what was an absolutely wonderful episode of On the Bench with Will Patterson. I was enthralled from start to finish and must applaud you all on a super show.
Thank you.
All the shows are, of course, great, but this one particularly so. I think Will managed to both scare me and then convince me to get a 3D printer with all within the space of an hour. Having used SolidWorks in an earlier role, the design side of things doesn't daunt me greatly, but it certainly was an incredible introduction and gave me the insight into all things 3D thanks to Will. And it was a fantastic show. We have had some feedback, and I actually sent that on to Will as well because I thought it was really good sort of feedback. And Will just got such a great way of
explaining.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you've heard the term science communicator exactly. I think I coined that term when we were talking to him. He's a model communicator because he's got a way of breaking down something that's can be particularly or can be complex, but breaking it down in such a way that, you know, dumbasses like me can understand.
Yes.
So, yeah, he's fantastic. And David goes on to say that on his bench, he's just started building the Academy 148 scale FJ Phantom, and he's picked up a set of furball decals, which are fantastic decals, by the way. He's going to be doing the US Navy VX4 Playboy Bunny scheme.
Oh, I love that scheme. All black, yep.
So, and he's asking us if we've got any advice on how to weather gloss black finish.
Ooh.
Jeez, I'd go out on a limb and say don't.
Yeah, me too. Well, especially on something like that, to me that is a show plane.
Well, yeah, and that thing would have been so well kept.
Yeah.
It's not like a combat aircraft that it's loaded up, fuel it up, send it off again.
No.
And it was a PR showpiece as well. In the gloss black scheme. I've actually built that, and I didn't weather it. I left it in its full gloss.
The only thing you'd probably, if you could call it weathering, is maybe dirty up the tyres a bit.
Yeah, and I would just suggest have a look at some pictures to see where Phantoms naturally weather, where they leak oil from, particularly on the underside.
Yes.
And I would suggest replicating that with the same colours as you would on a grey and white scheme. Mm-hmm. It's just that it's not going to show up much, but in certain angles and lights,
it's going to catch your reflections and so forth.
But see, my take on it is you could not weather it at all and have it fresh out of the paint shop. So it's that snapshot in time before she actually flew and when she sort of came out from getting her paint job done.
You said it was a PR piece, right?
Yeah.
That's why it's probably heavily photographed and why everyone does it as a model because they can see every inch of it, right?
Yeah. It was actually used operationally for their testing, but because it had the special paint scheme, it got special love and attention, basically.
Because everyone wanted to fly that bird.
Oh, it's a great looking scheme.
It is. It's one of my all-time favourites of the Phantoms.
Dave finishes up and says, thanks as ever for all of your hard work in creating the shows. They keep me company at the build table and on my way to and from work. Have a great time upcoming model show in Melbourne. Kind regards, David.
Thanks, Dave.
And Dave comes from Canberra, which is fantastic. All right, well, that's it for mailbag. And, of course, if you want to get in touch with us, you can send us an email to onthebench64@gmail.com. We love hearing from you guys and more than happy to receive your mail. Before we head on to see what the Falcon has to say, I think we might have a very quick break and listen to our sponsor, SMS Paints, back very shortly. The Scale Model Supply. Certified Australian made, the Scale Model Supply has a comprehensive range of premium acrylic lacquer paints that have been specifically developed to cater to the scale modeller. Designed to use straight from the bottle, SMS Paints have taken all the guesswork out of airbrushing. Simply shake, pour and spray for a fast drying and extremely durable result. But wait, there's more. SMS have just released the new water-based range, Infinite Colour. It is the ideal paint for anyone who is into miniature painting. And with 48 colours that can be mixed to create any colour you want, the possibilities are, well, infinite. The ever-growing range of SMS paints will suit all types of model builders, be it military, aircraft, train, car, science fiction, or even Gunpla. SMS paints will have a colour to suit you. Available now through selected stockists worldwide and online at www.scalemodeler.com.au. Okay, so we're back and let's see what the Falcon has to say for us. And he writes in, "Hi Dave, Ian and Julian. Top of the morning to you." Let's start off with some aircraft news. Because of many requests from modelers, Models Fit are releasing another version of their 72nd scale Baratini Berev VVA-14. The new kit will have inflatable pontoons, making a weird-looking thing look even weirder. Trumpeter will be releasing a 148 scale of the Chengdu J10C Vigorous Dragon. They have previously released a J10A Lethargic Dragon, but nobody wants a low energy dragon. I reckon a new kit will be popular with modelers. Vellum's 72nd scale Curtis C46D Commando is now available. Initially, there will be 2 boxings. Operation Varsity with marking options both for USAAF machines in OD over NG. That's olive drab over neutral grey.
Correct.
And National Guard version. Once again, 2 options, both Air National Guard, one with natural metal finish overall and the other one with natural metal finish with black undersides. The C46, I reckon, was a very underrated aircraft.
Yeah, the Commando.
Yeah.
All those
Very
missions.
attractive.
Yeah.
Too.
All those missions over the hump.
Oh, yeah.
Don't know that it was attractive. It had sort of an ugly sort of fuselage.
No, I like the way that it was all just
Streamlined.
a big streamlined nose. Yeah.
Almost reminiscent of, the Heinkel type designs. They
Yes.
were just built to be streamlined.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, last time Kinetic Models are about to announce an all-new Tool 48 scale kit. Well, they did, and to everyone's crushing disappointment, it was an F-16. So not the A4 Skyhawk expected by so many, and to add insult to injury, the new tool kit is an F-16A, which Kinetic already do. To give the kit its full name, it is a General Dynamics F-16A Midlife Upgrade Block 22. Kinetic touted that the new kit would use new moulding technology, and it sure does. Magnets. Using so-called magfire technology, there will be small magnets embedded in the weapons pylons and the weapons themselves, so you can now easily swap out a missile for a drop tank with no commitment required.
Turns your model into a toy, doesn't it?
Another feature of the kit is that it will be snap fit. Something that requires a lot of commitment indeed. Once you snap, there's no going back. Stealing some of Kinetic's thunder. Well, actually, before we move on.
Look, I'm not against snap fit completely, right? Like, there are people who can pull that off without any particular drawbacks. I don't think Kinetic's one of them.
Not with their history.
Well,
They can't even make their regular kits fit properly.
Well, look, now, when this was announced, the CEO of Kinetic actually put out a letter that went with it, and I think it appears in the modelling news as well. And what he said was that the company has now reached a maturity where they wanted to go back and actually redo the original model they did to the level that it deserves and to the level that modelers now expect.
Then why make it a snap kit?
Well, I don't know whether the actual term snap kit is exactly true, and I think we'll have to wait and see what the boxings come out before we all sort of cast aspersions and stuff like that. And I'm sufficiently interested to hold my breath and wait and see.
Okay.
And I think using magnets as well, it's a great idea for the loadouts. I don't see why the Falcon's got a bee up his bum about it.
I just reckon it makes a model into a toy.
No, it doesn't. I mean,
You can play with it. You can swap over your missiles and then you can run around the lounge room going whoosh.
which we all do anyway. So what's it?
Except for
I don't know what you're talking about.
Julian.
So for different missions, you can swap out.
Over in this
the
corner,
loadouts.
we don't do that sort of thing. We frown upon it. I don't care about the magnets. I really don't. I mean, as long as you're not silly enough to say, have the model on the table and then you try to put the ordnance on there and it suddenly snaps to it and then your model is sort of kind of airborne in the process. That sort of thing that magnets do. I don't think it's really an issue. I mean, like, I know people who have done that anyway, just so that it makes it easier to put things on. And
Well, Will Patterson just recently did it, didn't he? He's doing it on his F-18 that he's making, he's building.
Yeah. And Tamiya did it with their G6, so you can
Yeah.
have engine cowls open and close.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I think they're large-scale Mustang and Spitfire.
Yep.
So you could also have your engine cowlings on or off as you decided.
Yeah, that for me is fine. But personally, if you don't do weapon pylons and that, well, yeah, you're just turning into a toy. But to show engine and that, yeah, that's fair enough.
Yeah, but hang on. Wait. But you're saying, we've got a removable panel, that's okay, but we've got a removable weapon and that's not okay.
Yeah, I know, it's weird, isn't it? That's just the way my mind works.
Well, I'm just wondering if, you see modelers who just get caught with modeler's block with that indecision. Will I put the Phoenix missiles on this or will I put the drop tank?
Yeah.
Or no, I'll put the Sidewinders on instead. If you're given the option with magnets now, the thing's never going to get finished.
That's right. It's just going to sit there for the next 10 years.
with Snap Kit, I mean, it's not like Mung haven't done, or Mung, whatever you want to call them. It's not like they haven't done it with their Mustang. But at least they have some pretty high levels of engineering and fit. I haven't built one myself, but I imagine if you want to run a wash and it ends up flowing through those gaps between panel lines and things like that and somehow going inside the model, I don't imagine that's fun to deal with.
Well, I just think we should just wait and see what it looks like when the kit comes out, and then we'll hold our keep our powder dry.
What I am concerned about is that it might be like a direction that some manufacturers are heading in as they try to capture more casual markets. Because, you've got Games Workshop, they've started to go quite snap fit with their figures.
Could also be a terminology thing, which I see working for an international organisation.
Oh, yeah.
English,
A marketing
English
term.
is not English. So
Yeah.
when they're saying snap fit, it may not be what we see as snap fit in the old traditional method, but they may be saying snap fit
Tighter
as
tolerances.
much tighter tolerances, perfect fit. Because I did read something where they say you won't have to finesse the fit of parts. So that could be their terminology they're using for snap fit, which means something slightly different for us in our region.
Yep.
And I couldn't even profess as to say, what does that mean to somebody in the UK or Europe? When you say snap fit, does it mean the same thing as we interpret as? So I'm with Dave. I'm going to wait and see.
There's nothing you can, there's no harm in waiting. Yeah.
No. Can't say it's on my list, though, because I was one of the disappointed people when they said, oh, it's in F-16.
Yeah, I know. The world's crying out for somebody to do a new 148 scale.
You can register me as quietly skeptical.
All right.
Yeah.
Stealing some of Kinetic's thunder, Mini Base have announced a 148 scale F-16 of their own. It's a slightly different type to the Kinetic, as this one's going to be a General Dynamics F-16 A/B Block 20 Fighting Falcon. The previous Mini Base kit, their MiG-31, is said by some to be the finest 48 scale kit ever produced. Wow. So he might be in for something special with the F-16.
Okay.
Okay. Edward have released another variation of their 48 scale Sopwith Camel. The latest camel is the Sopwith Camel Comic, which I believe is a night fighter. Edward is also marketing a 3D printed upgrade set which details the upper wing Lewis guns.
That's good.
Yeah, that's another thing I was shown too. Edward is now doing 3D printed 1 to 350 and 1 700 and 1 200 scale watertight doors for ships. So rather than being etched metal, we always have to deal with these are 3D printed.
Well, Edward are sort of moving. They're doing the 3D cockpits now as well. They're just going from strength to strength.
They are.
I've built one of those.
What, a 3D cockpit?
Well, actually, no, it wasn't. It was a 3D printed master, I think. Yeah, for the resin cockpit I did on the P38.
Yeah, I've got a 3D printed one for my Phantom sitting there in the box ready to go. So, well, I've never used them before, so I'm particularly keen to see how it works out. Armour Hobby have been pleasantly surprised by the success of their 72nd scale Nakajima KI-84 Hayate. Yeah, okay. Apparently, it outsold their P51B Mustang. Their 172nd scale P51D Mustang is expected to be on sale around Christmas, New Year, and the 48 scale Hawker Hurricane should be out in September. Not so welcome news is that Armour will be raising prices from June the 1st. They're also considering dropping photo etch parts from their kits to keep the prices down. Oh. Infinity Models 132nd scale de Havilland DH100 Vampire will be available from July the 10th, though you can pre-order it now at their website. It will set you back around €79 plus postage. It's not bad for a 32nd scale kit.
Yeah.
The two kits will be available at first. It's going to be an F Mark III and an FB Mark V. The Mark III will have markings for the British and Swedish aircraft, and the Mark V will have British and Canadian markings. Infinity may be offering a kit of the Mark 51, which is operated by Switzerland, the one with the Pinocchio nose. The nose would be a resin part, apparently. Infinity have shown the box art for their forthcoming 32nd scale Nakajima Kate, which is their B5N2, which might be released later in 2022.
Oh, I think that might be quite a popular one.
The Kate, yeah.
Yeah, I reckon that might sell quite a bit, actually.
Certainly have presents, got a big wingspan.
Oh, yeah. A huge wingspan on those things.
Dora wings are still beavering away in Kiev despite difficulties and bombs and missiles raining down upon them. They have recently shown early CAD renders for their next kit, which is going to be a 148 scale de Havilland Canada DHC2 Beaver. Now, Airfix were the last ones to release a Beaver, I believe.
And Hobbycraft.
Didn't Matchbox do a Beaver?
72 scale.
Yeah, 72 scale, yeah.
The only 48 scale Beaver was done by Hobbycraft.
Right.
And I've got to say, it's a very basic kit. So this is great news, but those people who got their Beavers and putting them on eBay for $200 are about to be... they've just had their market devastated by this news. But look, I'll be glad to put mine onto the swap and sell pile and replace it with a new one, because the old kit is
very old.
Very old, and I would say a bit ordinary. Look, great in its day, but not by today's standards.
Yep.
Okay, so that's the end of aircraft news. Onwards to military vehicles. Ace Model will be releasing a 172nd scale kit of the Panhard VB2L, which is a lengthened version of the Panhard VBL.
Well, they actually made one longer.
Why would you? The kit will come with photo etch parts and those vinyl tyres that we all love. Not. Italy have announced a 35th scale German World War II Marder III OS FH. The kit isn't a new tool by any stretch. It's actually pretty ancient. However, Italy are providing a sprue with new road wheels and Lincoln length tracks. Buyer beware.
So you're not getting a new tool then?
Well, the road wheels are and the tracks. Yeah. Riffield Models have announced another 135th scale Tiger kit as part of their Tiger experimental series. This is going to be the Tiger VK45.01H FGSL NRV1.
Wow.
So the very first one.
You ran that gauntlet quite well. I was expecting the worst.
The only option is overall red primer, which will excite the wearaboos. What's that? What's a wearaboo?
I think that's people that...
It's a play on the word.
Play on the word Wehrmacht.
Wehrmacht.
Yeah, Wehrmacht. Wearaboos.
They love painting things with red primer, apparently. Noted Tiger expert David Burden has noted that the cupola is wrong and will be hard to fix, and that all of the 3 drive sprocket types provided are wrong for this vehicle. So once again, buy beware. With their attention focused on the war in Ukraine, some World War II anniversaries have gone mostly unnoticed. June the 6th anniversary of the D-Day landings was commemorated by Gecko models with the announcement of 3 new 35th scale kits. A Normandy Beach Log Ramp set, a Normandy Beach Hedgehog set, and more interesting, a British Landing Craft Assault.
Yes, I saw that. Looks quite nice.
Gecko have shown CAD renders of their Landing Craft Assault, otherwise known as LCA, and it's looking pretty impressive. And it will also be impressively large as well, being in 1/35 scale.
Oh, yeah.
Gecko announced another kit, but this one has nothing to do with D-Day. It's a 1/16 scale Panzer II OS F. What is it with 1/16 scale?
No, Dave.
I predicted this. I predicted this. Over 12 months ago? We're going to see this is going to be the year for 1/16 kits, and damn, am I right?
They're popping them out.
I should have put $100 in a bookie somewhere. I don't know.
You should have.
Money.
So is this the military vehicle equivalent where a lot of the aircraft scales are booming in 30-second scale?
Yeah.
And the 35th guys are saying, well, we want bigger too.
Yeah.
1/16 scale now.
Yeah, now he's going 1/16.
100%. CAD renders show a detailed packed interior, which I guess is pretty much expected at this scale. Impressive nonetheless, though people have already pointed out some errors.
Oh, God.
Amusing hobby are continuing down the prototype path with a 1/35th scale kit of the French AMX 50B. Quite an interesting looking turret with the quite an interesting looking vehicle with the oscillating turret. Should make a large and attractive model.
And the box art looks quite good, and the winter scheme with the green and the white camouflage looks quite nice.
It was one of the weirdest things. So to fit the gun in, they had to sort of mount it sideways
yes.
and weld it to the top of the turret, and then to be able to sort of move it around, they got that funny little well, what would you call it? An oscillation, I guess. The turret itself actually oscillates. Looks like it's got bellows on the front of it.
Yeah, it looks like an accordion.
Well, being a French kid, that's probably quite appropriate.
Yes.
As long as it doesn't make the sound, you know.
Oh, as long as it doesn't play Love You on Rose as it's sort of driving down the road. Actually, it was quite... there were quite a few foreign sales with it, so it was... worked out quite well.
Well, didn't the Israelis buy the guns and put them in the Shermans?
Ooh, I can't remember.
They made the
I
Super Shermans.
I think
They
that
used the
turret.
AMX gun.
I think the gun in that turret is actually the Panther gun.
Right.
Or a derivative of it, yeah.
Right.
Amusing hobby. Oh, sorry, I've already done that one. AFV Club have just announced a 1/35th scale new tool kit of the AAWS-M FGM-148 Javelin. You get one missile launcher with either US or UK type CLUs and 2 missile containers. You'll also get printed piece of cards so that you can make the cardboard boxes the missiles come in. I'm just wondering whether that should have been a larger scale rather than 35th. I know it's probably all right to go with the diorama dudes, but now, if anything should be done in 1/16 scale, I reckon the Javelin should be done in 1/16 scale. Just saying.
Yeah.
Classy Hobbies have shown box art for CAD renders of the, here we go, wait for it, 1/16 scale British Stuart.
Ooh, Mark 4.
Which is the
Mark 6.
Mark 6, which is the M5A1. Dashwork will be releasing a 1/35th scale Schuer Kleiner Panzerkampfwagen.
Schwerer Kleiner Panzerkampfwagen.
And I can say with that name, which we'll get to, this is exactly why we went to an electronic booking in for Model Expo.
Subtitle on the box is German Heavy Tank Project 1944. It's a 2-in-1 kit and will have 2 different barrel versions and night vision gear. This is a paper Panzer, I
And
think.
it looks quite cool because it's like a Hetzer, but with a little turret on top. And the turret's got a German 20mm cannon that you normally see in a Messerschmitt 262. So when you open the top of the cupola open, you can see this little 20mm cannon. And it just looks... And you get 2 kits in the box, so... tough one to pass on.
I know the one. I know. I've seen the box art. It looks a bit like that that tank destroyer thing that the Americans made for.
Oh, you mean the British Tortoise?
No, the American one.
The M10?
No, the paper looks like a
that ridiculous thing that has the extra tracks out on the side.
yeah. They can unbolt the side tracks off.
Yeah, and they can be pulled behind it.
Yeah.
But a small version because it's a tiny little tank.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's it for tanks, but the Falcon's actually dipped his toe in the science fiction. Apparently, round 2 have announced that they have the license for Jerry Anderson's UFO, which was a fantastic show when I used to watch as a kid. And they're going to be building a Shadow Interceptor and Earth Mobile in development. Oh, Shadow Interceptor, yes. That's those things with a great big missile on front. It's a one-shot wonder.
Yep. Yeah, I know. Yeah.
Round 2 also have a license for Space 1999 and are marketing a 148 scale Hawk Eagle transporter.
Geez, that'd be a decent size. Those Eagle transporters are quite large.
Yeah, that'll be very large.
Yeah.
I've got a 72nd scale, but it's not by round 2, which I need to get round building for next year. Round two must also have a license for Star Wars, as they're developing a 132nd scale kit of a TIE fighter, which is just going to be the standard type. They will also be kitting a Maraud shuttle, as seen in Bad Bunch animated series.
Bad Batch.
Bad Batch. All right. Never watched that.
You've done pretty well. I think you can forgive him for that one or two mistakes at the end there.
Yeah. Well, that's it for this fortnight from the Falcon. You guys got any new kit news that you want to?
Well,
no.
Pretty much told you mine. I can't think of anything else.
I can't either.
That's coming out. Yeah.
All right. How about we have a quick break and we'll then come back and we'll have our in-depth discussion with Laurence.
Sounds great.
Be back very shortly. Whether you build aircraft, armour, ships, science fiction, cars or figures, the Fine Scale Modeller magazine provides the how-to information you need to take your modelling to the next level. In each issue of Fine Scale Modeller, you'll find clear how-to features on model assembly and finishing written by experts, reviews of the hottest model kits and products, tips and techniques for assembling, painting and finishing, as well as inspiring photos of readers' models. To find out how you can get your copy of Fine Scale Modeller, go to www.finescale.com. And we're back to talk about our main subject, which is Model Expo 2022. And as we record this, there are 5 days and 11 hours to go before the show kicks off, which is going to be running on the 17th of June through to the 19th of June. And hence, that's why we've got Laurence in the studio.
Thank you.
Very excited. The show's been delayed now for 2 years because of COVID. And so the excitement and the pent-up desire to get out there is just building and building and building. And I'm just so excited to be able to actually get there this time round.
Yeah, and look, same for us too, because obviously when we had to cancel the 2 shows because of COVID, there was still work happening with the hope and the eventuality that we're going to be able to do a show in those years. So you get to the point where you have to make the conscious decision to cancel. There's a great deal of disappointment because you've already put in an amount of work and effort and even expense. So, and then you just pull the plug on it. So, but yeah, we're looking forward to it.
So what's different about this show compared to other shows? There's been a slight change in a couple of areas.
Yeah. So I'll start with a couple of the competition categories. We used to have science fiction, movie and fantasy, figures, bus and everything all bundled into categories by size.
Yep.
But when we had a look at the statistics, we've seen that there were a lot of bus in all these different categories. So what we've done is we created a new category and removed bus out of those categories, and it has its own category now. So science fiction, movie, fantasy, bus of all scales have their own individual category. So it's now competing apples with apples, where a bus is competing with another bus and not trying to compete with a science fiction figure, M4 or a vehicle or something else. So so that was the first category that got introduced this year. And the other one was the category that introduced things where like caricatures. So cartoon type models, egg planes, those sort of...
Toon tanks.
Yep. There's been a big surge in those over the last year, and a lot of manufacturers getting into that. And we thought that there was enough coming through, again, by our statistics that we could say, well, this satisfies having its own category.
So, with your categories, do you sit down at the end of the show and sort of look back about how many entrants you got to decide whether you're going to have a new category or indeed even drop a category at the next show?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So what we generally look for is we won't make a decision over just 1 year because you will have peaks and troughs in your entry. So what we look for is a trend over about a period of about 3 years.
Right.
So if we see, say, for example, if there's a big surge in a particular category, so long as that's being maintained for 3 years, then we'll say, yeah, okay, this is now a trend.
Right.
We need a new category, and then we then put our thinking hats on and try to work out exactly what should that category be. On the same category footing as well, we look at the categories that aren't supported. So there was one many years ago that the modelling fraternity asked for, which was die-cast model cars,
Yes.
where they would modify them, repaint them. First couple of years, there was good numbers, and then it just waned off very, very quickly. And after a number of years, we withdrew the category. So it's generally more that we add a category or modify a category. It's very rare that we will drop off a category altogether. But we've seen categories develop like the civil aircraft.
Yep.
It used to be a strange description of a category, so we actually split that again because the numbers were supporting it. So we have one category now where it used to be one, and everything was lumped in there. Civil aircraft, airliners, and their derivatives, which was very confusing. It now has civil aircraft as its own category. So this will be your air races, aerobatic aircraft. We have a category for civil airliners, so they have to be in airliner livery, etc. So we did a split through there. So and that made it clearer for people. So if you've got a Boeing 707 and it's in Qantas colours, it has its category.
Yep.
But if you're doing a Boeing 707 and it's in RAAF colours, uses a tanker, etc., that goes into the military section. So it helps to clarify. The other aspect why we do it is if we get really large numbers in a particular category, it starts becoming a nightmare for judging.
Yeah.
Not only just for the judges, but also for the competitors. Because if you've got to go through 50 models in a category, by the time you're at number 35, you're starting to subconsciously wear the judges down. And it's very hard for them to then keep everything consistent from model number 1 through to model number 50.
Yep.
So we try to reduce the numbers in a category if we can by splitting. But yeah, every year we do a post-mortem on the entire event, what worked well, what we can improve, what hasn't worked well, again, what we can improve, and any changes we need to make, and also areas for development.
Now, we've seen a change in the actual date because traditionally Model Expo has always been held on the Queen's birthday weekend, which is this weekend as we record.
Correct.
But obviously because of scheduling conflicts with the centre in which you normally hold it, you've had to push it back by a week.
Correct. Yeah. So basically today, as we record, is Saturday. There's actually a horse race. So normally we would bump in on the Friday, start taking entries in on the Friday night and run through to the public holiday on the Monday, which works really well for us. But unfortunately, because there's a horse race on Saturday, they actually use the main room that we use. It's a tote room for the MRC, Melbourne Racing Club. It's their venue.
Yes, of course.
They can pull rank. So,
that's right,
obviously, financially, that would be a much bigger money spinner for them.
Yeah,
So we made decision we looked at the weekend beforehand, but there were problems also with the venue then. And so we looked at the weekend, which will be next weekend. We made the decision that we still needed a 3-day event because to have
It's such a
everything
large
running-
show. It's such a large
Correct.
show.
Yeah, we have tried in the past to do it in 2 days, and to say it's almost killed us is pretty close. So we needed 3 days to do it, and it's because we want to run a full event. Because of the 2 years not having any event at all, we didn't want to have a model where we had a 2-day event, but dropping off things that were features of the show, such as demos, swap and sell, and all those things that we wouldn't have time to do.
Yeah.
And again, the decision was looked at: do you do a Friday through Sunday, or do you do a Saturday through to Monday? Now, the thought was, we thought people would be more inclined, and this is especially with the modelers, be more inclined to take a Friday off as a leave day, because it's a standard business day coming up, that people will be more inclined to take a day off on a Friday than people are inclined to take a day off on the Monday. And especially with the Queen's birthday weekend being this weekend, some people will say, well, I've got Monday off, I want to have Friday off, might take the whole week off and have a bit of a break in the middle of the year.
And look, the IPMS Nationals over in the US traditionally has always been a Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and that's worked extremely well. And given that this is the premier show for Australia, I can understand it that some people may have issues getting a Thursday or Friday off, but if you're planning on travelling from interstate, you're going to be having a Friday or a Monday off anyway.
That's correct.
So it's not really going to affect you that much. And most people have the flexibility these days to take, a particular day off or a couple of days off.
Yeah.
So I don't see that as being a stumbling block at all.
Yeah, and we don't either. We will see that. We think the model will be that predominantly Friday will be, if you want to call it like a modeler trade day, but it'll be predominantly modelers and not so much your general members of the public.
Yep.
So people coming in to book in for the competition will be doing judging on Friday night this year. We'll get some public, but we think the bulk of the public will come through on the Saturday and Sunday. So it's sort of taking that trade day, general public, Saturday, Sunday sort of format, like you see at, say, the Avalon Air Show, for example.
Yes.
They have a full week of trade and then open to the public.
Yep.
So,
So do you think this is something that you'll continue on into the future, or are you going to wait and see how this experiment of doing the off public holiday weekend goes?
Yeah, look, our preference is to try and do it on the Queen's birthday weekend. The Monday being a public holiday is an advantage for the event, to getting more people to come and visit, or them having the opportunity to come and visit. But there's obviously things like horse racing schedule.
Because the show runs at a horse racing track. Yep,
correct. So even to the point where next week we will obviously bump in on the Thursday and start setting up. There's actually a horse race there again on the Wednesday beforehand. So we're working our time frame in with the venue, because obviously they are getting their cleaners in very early.
Yeah.
Empty that room, clean that room, and have it ready for us to be able to bump in. So,
Now, the Sandown racetrack in which the show's held, there's been a lot of rumours in the last couple of years swirling around as to what's actually going to become of their racetrack, whether it's going to be sold off or whatever. And that then raises a question where would Model Expo go? So what can you tell us about the actual rumours about the place being demolished and houses just being put up there or something in the future?
Yeah, okay. They're still going through their rezoning process, and that takes quite a while. And that's the first step in seeing what's possible for them. If they can get rezoning, then they've got options. Doesn't necessarily mean that they'll act on those options. If the zoning doesn't get approved, then they know that's just a dead end for them. But speaking to the people at the venue, they seem quite convinced it's still going to be there for quite a while.
That's good.
Which would be good for us because it works well. It ticks pretty much all of the boxes. Now, all of the criteria to run something like Model Expo is quite difficult. And without going into too many boring details...
Let's go into the details, because I'm sure the listeners are interested. What are the credential or the criteria for that you look at to run a large-scale model competition like this?
Okay, well, first one's affordability of the venue. So... your listeners may be startled to hear that to run Model Expo in 2022 is probably going to be close to about $50,000.
Holy dooly.
Fair bit of money.
$50,000.
Yeah.
Yep.
So the last previous ones have been around about 40, 42. We've seen some increases. Normally we see them incrementally, but not having a show for 2 years.
Yeah.
It's a big hit.
Bang.
Yeah.
You see 3 years of
course.
increases in one go. So the first one's affordability, because then that has flow-on effects, which the more expensive it gets, the more we have to charge traders for their space.
Yep.
The more you got to charge for people to come and enter their models.
Yep.
And also for people who come in to view. So the show has to be able to sustain itself from a cost effective. So one is affordability. Two is size. We use 2,000 square metres for the event. Plus we use another 1,000 square metres for the swap and sell. They're quite sizable, and there's not a lot of venues of that size.
No.
Then you get...
It's not in affordability anyway.
They probably are, but the affordability sort of for that sort of size venue sort of is very few and far between in Melbourne metro area.
Yeah, look, about 14 years ago we priced out a very big, well-known entertainment venue that's sitting on the Yarra River, close to the city.
Oh, Jeff Shed.
And the quote we got for approximately 2,000 square feet at that stage was $250,000.
Whoa.
So, Model Expo is a very affordable venue, and it's not like some of the shows where retailers or demonstrators pay something like $1,000 or $2,000 per square metre. You know, the hobby and that's just not economically viable.
Yep.
So that's one thing. Access is another thing. So look, we could find venues, much further out from the city, but its accessibility is a problem. So we needed to have public transport accessibility, ease of road access, fairly central, and also if there's a train line nearby, which Sandown ticks all of those boxes.
Yep.
The other thing is adequate car parking.
Yes.
Because a lot of people drive, especially
yep.
competitors. You bring in your models.
Yep.
We pay for part of the parking deal with Sandown. So Model Expo will absorb part of that cost. But pretty much...
I didn't realise that. So the free parking that we get as people who come as modelers...
Yep.
You guys are actually covering that cost.
Yeah, we're subsidising that to a small degree, but you could say that it comes at a very, very good deal.
Yep.
So you could say that we're paying for one day and getting the rest of the days free.
Gotcha. Yep.
Where every other venue that we've looked at as a potential, car parking is pretty much something around $15 a day.
Yeah, Jesus.
So
which
that's
means,
a detractor for people
means
to come and visit the
there's
show.
one kit you can't buy.
Yes.
And look, for some people, if they intend to come along to the show and you're coming in on the first day to put in your entries, and if you're coming to pick them up at presentation, well, there's if you're paying for your park spot, there's $30 out of your pocket. That will deter a lot of people. So there's some of the key criteria. The one thing we've never ever found, and I doubt we will, because no venue has ever been constructed from a lighting point of view to be perfect for a modelling competition.
Yeah.
So poor lighting is just the nature of any venue that we've looked at.
Yeah.
But obviously that's something we look at, because if it ticks a few of the other boxes, but it's a dark venue, then it's not usable to us.
Yeah. Sometimes you get a compromise on a few things, like building a tank from scratch, isn't it?
It is.
Designing a tank. You want, armour, speed, and firepower.
balance.
It's a balance.
Yeah.
Balancing act.
Yeah. And Model Expo is a not-for-profit organisation, but that doesn't mean that you don't need to make a profit, because we try to make a small profit, and that is put aside because there's rising costs for Model Expo. We have to pay for everything ahead of the event running. As I said, every year gets more expensive, but having a little bit of money in the bank allows you to put it into the show to develop it further. So, for example, what we're seeing at the moment is a new website, which we had developed over during the COVID period. That costs a little bit. When we introduced the electronic booking the QR coding system, that's time involved with programmers and so forth, so there's another cost. These things can't happen if you're running at a break-even year after year after year, because you just don't have the money for it.
So you mentioned then a new booking in system. So do you want to we'll just put a microscope on that, and you can explain that in a bit more detail, how that works?
Yeah. So what we've developed, and I'll explain one of the criteria we had, which is very important for some people to know. One of the things we didn't want to do was have an electronic system over the internet that had people's personal details going backwards and forwards.
Yep.
Because there's a lot of hackers out there and stuff like that. So what we did is developed a system where you go online and you enter in your details on a form. And if you think back to that German Tiger tank and its description.
Yes.
So what would happen in the past, people would hand fill that in on a piece of paper. Most handwriting was like a chook with arthritis had scribbled on it.
Yep.
And people would try and interpret that and type that in.
Yep.
So there was lots of errors being induced by that transition from a handwritten form by the people doing the booking in at Model Expo.
Yep.
By going in onto having it electronic, it's nicely typed out. The person is actually putting in that it's an SDKFZ 251-4 and there's no interpretation required.
Yep.
And then what that does is that they put in the details, and the change this year is that modelers will now be responsible for identifying the category that it belongs to. So, for example, if it's ME12 or should be ME12A1. Before, we used to have scrutineers because of the manual process. But we were the only event in the world that had that.
Okay.
Every other event, it's the onus is on the modeler.
Right.
We've moved to that because there's also another cost with running the event is resource. The committee's only got a core of 7 people. We rely a lot on volunteers on the weekend, but you never know how many you're going to get.
Yep.
But like most things, it's difficult to get resources. So this helps us manage our resources as well.
Yep.
So the people go in, they'll fill in their first line of detail, and as soon as they do their first line, all of a sudden they'll see the QR code appear. That actually captures that information. And then they go through, and each form can handle up to 5 before the QR code becomes overloaded.
Yep.
So if people have got 8 models, they'll do a form with 5 and then another form with 3.
Yep.
And once they've got that all entered, they can either have it on their phone or they can just print it off at home, bring their models along, go straight to the registration desk, hand over, let's say if they've got 8 models, so they'll have 2 forms. We'll scan the QR code and that'll instantly take all that information off their form and put it straight into
That means you're not going to have
Expo.
those lines where you've got to wait for a half an hour.
Correct. And that's one of the things we wanted to reduce is those long queues for people. So we'll even be setting up a machine and a printer there. So if somebody's come in and has not looked at the website, there'll be facilities there where they'll be able to type it all in on the laptop, press print, produce the
Oh,
form,
that's good. Yeah,
and
that's
jump
handy,
online.
Yeah.
So-
Because guaranteed you're going to find half a dozen people. At
I
least.
think we'll find more than half a dozen.
At least. At least.
Yeah. So so that was the basis. Is we wanted something that was more efficient, so people aren't standing there for a long time.
Yep.
We wanted something that protected people's personal information.
Yes.
So it's a standalone, and something that reduced our workloads, and also reduced our induced errors. We're trying to interpret people's handwriting and so on. So this will be our first year. We've had we went through all our UAT testing, worked perfectly, and as normal, went into production with it, and it started throwing up some strange quirks, which have now been fixed and so forth. But pretty straightforward. I'm probably the idiot-proof tester for the group, so
I think you could probably give me a call for that job.
well, it all worked fine for me, and I suppose the best thing was I'm also the sort of person who can test things to destruction, so I didn't break it either.
Yep.
So that all worked well. But the key onus is for people to have a look at, make sure that they've looked at the category code that they're entering. And what we've got on the website is all the information's there. So the form's there, there's categories, and if you start typing in, let's say ME12, there's several ME12, it'll pop up.
So
with the
ME12,
3
for those listeners, that's a category number.
Correct.
Yep.
Correct. So there's ME12, I think, and don't quote me on this, but ME12A1, ME12A2. But when you punch in ME12, those 3 will pop up with the descriptors.
Yep.
So you'll be able to say, is it this category? Is it this descriptor? No, it's this descriptor.
Having already gone through it and done it, it's quite an easy process.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So did you find out where your real space went?
Yeah, it goes miscellaneous.
Miscellaneous.
Yep.
What we
So
discussed,
for 3 years, all of you real space builders out there, bring your models to this expo and also to the next two, so we can get our own category.
Yeah, and look, that's exactly how it works. If there's enough numbers to sustain a class.
So how many numbers in the class do you need? Obviously, you need a minimum of 3, don't you? I'm assuming.
Oh, absolutely. But if we were getting 3 every year, that probably wouldn't justify
Yep.
it. If we were getting 8 or 10 every year, then we would be saying clearly this could be a new category. It's a win-win for the modelers.
Yep.
Because they have their category. It's easier for the judges. In miscellaneous, if you're looking at a rocket and then you're looking at... trying to think of what else would be in miscellaneous because there's so many categories to cover everything.
A bulldozer.
A civil bulldozer.
Yes.
That would be in miscellaneous. It's
Dinosaurs.
It's difficult. No, don't.
They got their own, have they?
Animals have got their own. And I think that includes dinosaurs. I'm not sure. I'll have to check. It all becomes a blur after a while.
Yes, it does.
But... if there was real space, then you're looking at space vehicles. You're comparing apples and apples, basically.
Yeah.
And you're judging something that's similar to each other, as opposed to looking at something that's completely different to another thing over here. So you can imagine if miscellaneous, it'd be like if you're trying to judge a 350 scale destroyer and a 72nd scale Lancaster. They're different subjects, different building criteria, etc.
And I've just brought up the handbook for this year's show.
Yep.
And I'm just trying to find the one that Ian was asking about.
What, dinosaurs?
Dinosaurs, yeah.
Yep, keep going.
It's in there somewhere anyway.
Yeah, it'll be a bit further down. I think it's in the 50s or 60s ranges after...
So ME stands for Model Expo, does it not?
Correct.
Right.
Yeah. So the electronic system we developed for Model Expo for the booking in, and it also has a lot of reporting capability.
Mm-hmm.
So this is how we can produce and have a look at our statistics over the years for the various categories.
Right.
It also produces a lot of reports for us to be able to run the event. So we have a lot of best of brand type things. So through Expose, we can go through and get a printout of all the models that are in the hall that are built that from Italeri models, for example. Right. And then the judges can work with that rather than having to go on a physical hunt. So it gives us a lot of... it helps streamline the process and just makes it more accurate.
Animals.
There we go. So ME85 is animals. Real-world creatures includes dinosaurs.
There you go.
And miscellaneous open, that's where my rockets are going.
But yeah, put the call out to the real space
100%,
modelers.
100%. So having not been, are you seeing a big pent-up sort of desire? I mean, pent-up, what's the word I'm looking for?
Anticipation for the show?
Yes.
Yeah, very definitely. We can judge it by the number of queries that we get coming into Model Expo about various aspects of the show. So amongst the modelers, very definitely we would say that there is a buzz about this year's event, which we expected, having no event for
2 years.
For 2 years, so everyone's chomping at the bits. I think for some people it throws in another aspect because COVID's been a modeller's environment to keep building, picking what they're going to bring along for Model Expo.
I reckon there's going to be a lot of entries this year.
Well, are you then therefore anticipating an increase in entries?
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. So, and we've had to plan a few things, and this may explain for club members. Normally we supply 2 club tables.
Yep.
Sometimes people want 4.
Yep.
Well,
This
we
year we
usually did.
This year we've had to say, sorry, we can limit it only to 2.
Yep.
And we've also asked that this year we can't have people manning their club tables because we're anticipating with the number of models that we get that we may need in a ring in the islands.
Okay.
Which I'll explain. That also explains why we have islands.
Yep.
Because we expect we're going to get a big number of competition entries and we need to be able to cater for that. So this leads to the next step. A lot of people ask us, why do we have the island type setup at Model Expo rather than just straight rows that a lot of shows have traditionally.
Yep.
What it does is, say we put 2 or even 3 tables for, say, large-scale aircraft, and there's a couple of categories there. If we get a huge influx, because you never know what you're going to get on the
Middle
year.
of the day, yeah.
If you've got a long row of tables, it's very hard to then
Add
adjust
more,
it.
yes.
Yeah. With the island, what we can do is put another table on the inner ring right up against the table. So we can build inwards into those islands.
Yep.
And that gives us a great deal of flexibility because we can add another 2 tables into the large-scale aircraft.
Yes.
It literally takes a few minutes, a couple of tables, put it in, tablecloth, and then the entries are going on it.
Yep.
If you had a long line, you're mucking around for about half an hour.
So with the club displays, are they side by side, the 2 tables, or depth?
Side by side.
Side by side.
Yep. Yeah, we'll always try and do it side by
Yep.
side. And the only other item we have is for an OH&S point. We have for any club display or any display in the intersection of the hall, can't be above 1.8 metres. And the logic behind that, because some people will scratch their head and say, why do you do that? It's an OH&S requirement because if everything's under 1.8 metres, you can virtually stand at any point in the hall and you can see the emergency exit signs.
Yep.
So that's another thing that, you have to do cater for,
Yep.
so where people can clearly see where the emergency exits are
Yep.
in case there's a need.
No, makes sense.
So that's the couple of categories we've added in. The online booking in system, which we think will be a huge improvement. The other thing is that a lot of it will be moving as cashless as possible.
Right.
So for people who are coming in the door to visit, it'll be electronic scanning for card. We'll still cater for cash because some people will still stick with that. But the same for booking in. So we'll have the block systems where people will be able to scan their credit card and pay by credit card, which is another off-spin that's come out of COVID.
Yep. Do you talk with the other major shows like over in the UK, Telford, or talk to the guys over in the US to see what they're doing in regards to their shows and whether there's, systems that you guys can share between all the different IPMSs? Yeah,
look, we've had some discussions with the people with IPMS USA. We've actually had visitors come over. There's one very unique difference that stops a lot of cross-pollination of ideas and systems and the guy who's out from Texas pointed it out, and he's a regular visitor. And he said why he loved coming to our show in Australia was, he said, you've got a consistent committee.
Yep.
You have continuous improvement. And he said, you see the show develops. Like, for example, our QR coding. He said, because in the US, it moves from, I think it was in Las Vegas last year.
Yeah, it was. And we were actually going to go to that, but COVID sort of
put a stop to that.
Yeah.
It's in Omaha.
Yep.
This year. So what happens is, because every year it's like a new event. It's a new venue. It's a different group, different systems and so forth. So all the lessons you could learn from the Vegas show probably can't be applied to Omaha. So Omaha will, unfortunately, and to whatever degree it'll be, will make their own set of mistakes with it. So it's very difficult with the IPMS nationals to move around and learn from the mistakes of this year. Because what we'll do is pretty much straight after this Model Expo, while it's all still fresh, we'll have a post-mortem meeting and we'll go through what has worked well, what does it need to even still be further improved, what didn't work well, what do we need to fix that for next year. And there's little changes.
And it's interesting, and I know because we know a couple of the guys who are on the US IPMS National Committee, and I know that there's been some talk with their elections that just recently came up where they're looking at perhaps considering just going to holding the show in the one place year in, year out. I think one of the advantages of that is if you pick the right place, people can plan for that.
Correct.
Whereas, and I know that they sort of post where the shows are going to be in advance so you can sort of plan for it. But having the same place time and time again, it's just, from a planning point of view, from the people who are attending as well as for those who are setting up, it's got a lot of merit to it as well.
Yeah.
And it's like Telford. Telford's always in the same place. Telford is Telford.
Yep.
And same with the big shows in Europe as well.
Yeah.
They tend to not move around. Japan is another one that's always in the... What's the name of that? Shizuoka, yeah. That's always there.
And there's a lot of differences country by country in also the culture of the modelers as well. So if you go to Telford... it's a large portion of it, and the European shows, you would say that they're more a trade hobby show than they are an actual competition, because their number of competition entries are bigger than ours.
Yeah.
But when you look at the size of the populations entertaining the areas, the regions, compared to Australia's population, the number we get, excuse me, we do very, very well. But the big focus, from what I've heard and been told, is people will save up a lot of their money because all the traders will come from all over Europe and everything in England because everything's very, very close.
Yes.
They'll go and do their big annual spend there and
Yep.
visit all the traders, the manufacturers, and that's why it's more a trade focus for the modelers, where ours is more a competition focus. And yes, for 3 days we're probably the biggest hobby shop in Australia.
Yeah, Southern Hemisphere, aren't you?
And look, it's not that similar also in the US. And for people to come across from Europe to the US is a lot easier
Yeah, I know.
than anyone to come from anywhere in the globe and come to Australia.
Ask us how we know how expensive it is to get to Omaha.
Exactly. So Australia is a far location for anyone. So we're used to travelling long distances.
We are. But the rest of the world isn't.
Yeah. So there's a different culture, if you want to call it demographics, in how the hobby shows work in Europe.
Yeah.
And also in how the IPMS nationals work in the US.
What I found striking from what I've seen of Telford is that, and it's interesting because there's some European shows kicking off, and our good friend Chris Meddings is going to be on in a couple of weeks after going to one of the European shows, so he's going to report back to us on that. Telford, it's special interest groups play a huge part in the displays over there.
Yeah, and there's quite a few. You'll have your real space.
Or catapult aircraft launches, for example.
Correct.
Or whatever little sort of speciality you can think of, they sort of have a specific group for that.
Yeah. Whereas in Australia, we tend to have generalist clubs.
Yeah.
I mean, if you want to talk about special interest groups, really, I think the only one that's really around is Warbirds.
It's not a big thing out here, is it? Really,
No.
special interest groups.
No, and even for Warbirds, I mean, military aircraft across the ages, that's a pretty broad spectrum. And it's still not unusual to turn up at a club meeting, because I'm a member there as well as with IPMS.
Yeah.
And there'll be a military aircraft, and there'll be a civil aircraft, and there'll be a tank, and there'll be a figure, and we're all modelers. That's our focus. But special interest groups in Europe, and I think that's driven just purely by the population numbers that are in Europe and the USA.
Yeah. So, competition numbers back in 2020, can you remember the number?
2019, I think, was 840 or 842.
Okay. And because we're going to actually record from the show, we'll have you back on the show when we're recording live. So
and see what we actually get.
I want. Let's take bets. So, what do you reckon this one's going to be?
I reckon you're going to hit 4 figures this year.
I reckon you're going to hit 4 figures.
Yeah, I think it's most likely going to be 4 figures. And look, I'm going to go out on a limb and say it could possibly even touch 1,200.
Okay.
So,
that'll be interesting.
And look, I use, obviously we've been trying to work this out on the committee. So our test pieces are ourselves.
Yeah.
And if I use myself, a lot of people say I'm a prolific builder. So every year at Expo, I would have 4 to 6 models to enter at Expo. What I'm taking this year is 10. I think I've got 23 that are Expo eligible. But it's just a logistic nightmare to to take that.
Oh, yeah.
However, if you're building AFVs and they're that really nice rectangular sort of shape, and you can get quite a lot in a box. Yeah, I have heard a couple of rumours that there are a couple of people who have 20 plus
Oh, my God.
military vehicles to enter. I've heard about one large diorama. Because of the size of diorama, it's probably the only thing that person will bring.
Yeah. Well, I've got 10 kits I'm bringing this year
Yeah.
for competition.
Yeah. So, yeah, I'm going to go out on a limb and say we could possibly touch 1,200.
Hey, it's going to be a tough year for judging, man.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It's going to be a really tough year. How do you, what sort of judge? Oh, okay. This is your opportunity to pitch to the listeners who are attending. So, for judging, how do we get our judges and where do we get them from?
They're volunteers from the modelling fraternity. All they need to do is just rock up on the Friday night at, say, 5:30. We'll kick off the judging at 6. We use a 2-stage process for the judging, which I'll explain in a minute. But to recruit judges, even if people have never done it before, I highly recommend it.
You learn lots.
And an inexperienced person will always be paired with an experienced person. And we always have a 2-judge team. It just keeps everything clear and above board, and we encourage people, even the experienced judges, to challenge. Why are you giving that 15 points and not 18 points in that category? And the technical judging is banded as a guide to help guide the judges, so you don't have somebody saying, I'm going to allocate 25 points for that, when the band will clearly indicate to them that they should be allocating 15 points. It's there as a guide and keep it as banded as we can.
Sure.
But why I really recommend it to anybody, even experienced people who have never judged before, modelers, and inexperienced, is a couple of hours of judging. You will learn so much by looking at what other people have done or not done. And especially when it comes to preparing references for the judges, which I'll touch on in a couple of minutes.
Sure.
People will learn so much by looking at models, and then actually they look great on the table. You pick them up, turn them over, inspect them, but you start looking at them in a technical aspect, as in construction, attention to detail, the finish, accuracy to reference, and realism. Realism is really the only true subjective category, but again, we have it banded with guidelines saying, does it look like a toy? Does it look like a model? All the way to the top, does it look like a miniature replica of the real thing to every detail? So much for a judge to learn. So I highly recommend it.
Especially to people who are argumentative.
Oh, look, absolutely. I've not had anybody, and look, some people have challenged us in our judging aspects and saying, well, why did that win and not that one? Because they're doing what we would call eyeball judging rather than technical. And we've always put the offer out, volunteer, come and do judging and have a look at how it's done. I can't recall anybody who has actually then taken up that challenge, turned up the next year, who has not walked away converted, or at the very least, if they haven't been converted, have walked away not having learnt so much that they're going to apply to their own modelling skills.
Yeah, exactly right.
So that's so... And
You have to see what goes on behind the curtain,
Correct. The other enticement for judges is Model Expo will spring for pizza. So we have pizza on the Friday night.
After the judging's done or before? Because
It's actually during.
greasy fingers, no.
Yeah, so don't worry. As soon as dinner's over, there's the wash basins, guys.
Wash up.
So
Got someone there to check you under your fingernails.
Yeah. And look, you're going to get that respect for the models because they're all modelers too.
Yeah.
So we spring for pizza and drinks. And also we try to put in incentives for people who've given up their time.
Yeah.
So
Also, it's hard to judge on an empty stomach.
correct. So for judges who are there up to a certain time, we actually have a judge's gift. So we've had a product made. It's exclusive for this Model Expo only. I won't say what it is, so it'll be a surprise.
Very good.
It's been made by a local manufacturer. It is a once-off. It will never be reproduced again. and even has its own Model Expo label on it and the whole lot.
Mm-hmm.
So
there's an incentive to sign up to be a judge.
yeah. And in the past, we've had different types of incentives to get people because they are putting in their time. But also, Model Expo, the modelling fraternity to run it needs the number of judges.
100%, yes.
Yeah. So,
and the thing about that is you're being judged by your peers.
Correct. Correct. And our system, like IPMS, they do it differently. In the US, for example, they assign experts.
Yep.
We have put it in with guidelines on the categories and separated, which is all available on the website. So the process is completely transparent.
Yep.
But it is a two-stage. Generally, so if there's 30 models, there's a quick judging. It's very brutal. And what we'll sort out is the contenders against the non-runners. And again, it works on the basis of the same technical criteria.
Yep.
And then out of that 30, you might end up with 12 that are going to go into the next stage of judging. Those 12, that's what a commended certificate's for. It's in the normal English, we call it the ones that have made the cut.
Yep.
They'll get a commended certificate.
Yep.
And 3 of them will get places according to their highest score. The other thing we recommend to people who are doing the judging is you go through and you allocate your points for construction, attention to detail, finish and so on. Don't add it up. Just leave that, put that aside, do the next model, do the next model. And then when you get to the end of the 12, that's when you add up the scores. And that's the most fair and objective way because you may think as a judge, I think this one will probably come out in first place. And then when you add up the scores, you realise, well, you know what, it actually didn't place or it came third or this one pipped it by 2 points. So, if I may, talking about points, there's 10 points that go up for accuracy to reference.
Yep.
Now, this is a big tip for modelers. We see a common mistake done where people will spend 30 or 40 hours on their model and their competition-orientated models, and then they'll spend minimal time preparing their references, in some cases a handwritten note. There's 10 points up for grabs in that.
And that's 10%, right?
That's 10%, yeah. 10 points out of 100 is just purely for accuracy to reference. And then people need to put in a bit of time to prepare their references because they know what they've done in their head and why they've done it. They now have to convey this to somebody else and they're not there to explain it to the judges.
Yes.
So, for example, this is the common mistake we'll make, and I'm just looking at your poster. So say somebody's got a Saab Viggen and the model's in the 3-tone colour scheme, the splinter scheme, and then there's all these photos of bare metal ones. Without any explanation of what it's there for. And worse, if it's the same aircraft and it's tail number 7, I've got a splinter camouflage model and I've got photos showing me a bare metal finish. Now, they may have put that in that finish to show me this is the colours for the antenna on the fin. They need to point that out to the judges that this is why I'm giving you this picture. If people just throw a whole range of reference stuff towards a judge without explanation, and worse, if it's contradictory to the model, they'll lose points. And if they don't explain it clearly and it confuses the judges, they can lose points. Now, in really hotly tested conditions, we have seen occasionally that there's 3 points separating first to third. Only a point between each one. So you don't want to throw away 4 points because you didn't do your references properly.
And you don't want to go overboard too.
Correct.
And like give a novel. There's nothing worse than being a judge and going to the references and going, oh crap, you're home for the next half hour going through this freaking 200-page novel.
And look, there are some models that have got so much work done to them that there's different techniques. And this is what people will get. If you come and do judging, you'll actually see the difference between the handwritten note to a well-prepared reference material, even for a complex model that's had a lot of work done, but it's done clearly, concisely and accurately and leaves no room for doubt for the judges to what they're looking at and understanding why the modeler has actually done that,
Correct,
or
yeah.
painted in that colour, etc.
100%.
I should say with the novel thing, I mean, that's what you're referring to is the wall of text,
Yeah.
right? Because some people have made books, like our good friend, and it was a well-made book, and it was all nicely annotated and images.
Oh, you mean
and,
Sam?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, of course. Yeah, but it's not a
Sam's
chore,
a freak,
it's not a chore to
dude.
read,
He
right?
is, yeah.
Like,
Oh, it's almost a book you'd go and purchase.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it is. Well, I mean, that's exactly what you would get in a publication, if not more, right?
And different people approach it different ways. So
Yeah.
many years ago, I took the old Monogram Hind helicopter, and I wanted to have a go at that and see, could I build this and redo it to make it come up to the standards of today's type of kits. So there's not a single part on there that's not modified, scratch built, or aftermarket, or whatever.
I know exactly where you're coming from. I've got a project that I started, and everyone knows about me Marauder.
Yep,
I wanted to bring a Marauder up to Edward standards.
yep.
And that means sanding all the detail off, riveting everything, and
Yep.
it gets to the point after a while of riveting, you've got to put it away
Yeah.
because it drives you bananas.
And the challenge will be, when you're doing a reference, when you've done so much work, how do you do that without it becoming War and Peace?
Yeah.
Now, approach I've used with that Hind has been pictures. Pictures are 1,000 a world, but there's only two things you're looking at. So, for example, I scratch built the windscreen wiper on the front canopy. There was a photo of the model windscreen wiper. Next to it was a photo of the real thing. And all my description was scratch built windscreen wiper. And then the next item was the panel work around the exhaust shield. Photo of the model, photo of the real thing.
Yeah.
So you can see that I've done it.
well, it's a visual medium. You need to communicate in images.
Yeah. Now, that did have, I think, about 14 pages of build and modifications and
But
stuff
that's
like
an
that.
extreme case, right?
But then I put it is an extreme case, but to help the judges,
Yeah.
because I've done a lot of judging over the time, is actually put an index in the front. So if the model judge is looking at it and saying, oh, what are all these weird aerials underneath, they can look at the index and see fuselage aerials. Flick to that page. Oh, yeah, there's a photo of the real
That's a
thing.
great way of doing it, yeah.
So, and I've done that with that scratch built subject, because
Yep.
Yeah. And
every piece of it needs a piece of reference.
and,
Yeah,
and,
being
and
completely
like if
scratch
people
built, yeah.
don't want to go like to such a high end degree because they haven't built such a complex model, just bullet points and just a couple of images, for references.
Yep.
As
Yeah,
long as the
that's
images
all.
match.
That's going to cover like most of what you need.
Yeah.
And perhaps that you need to keep it simple too, because the judges are going to be so busy with what's going to be a very large competition this year.
Correct.
Yeah, if they're judging 30 models per category, and they're probably going to do
30
like
plus.
5 to 6
Yeah.
categories in the night, and they've got to get done by midnight.
Yeah.
You don't want to be the guy that gets glossed over.
Yeah. Yeah. And even I would suggest people who are building a model for an out-of-box category, there's a couple of little things you're allowed to do, like drill out the gun barrels and exhausts and things like that, or you may even paint in a different colour scheme. So I've got one that's an out-of-box model, being it started off as a 2-seat Mirage D. It's now a 2-seat Israeli Nasher. So the Sidewinder missile fins were modified slightly. So there's a picture of the missiles, one picture showing the difference in the fins, and just a descriptor that the fins have just been trimmed and reshaped. The colour scheme. There's a left side, there's a right side, and one of the things that seems to be variable is the colour of their air brakes. So I've put a picture showing, here it shows that the air brakes are red on the top side of the wing and also red on the bottom side of the wing. And it belongs to that particular aircraft. There's no point I haven't given them a picture of the other Mirage parked next to it, which is a different aircraft, because it's painted different. That's what would confuse the judges. So
Yeah.
don't,
Yeah.
as you say, dot point. So I think I pointed out 4 things for the 4 small modifications that I've done in out of box that the rules allow, just to show the judges this is what I've done and why.
Yeah, and you also don't want to add images that's going to shoot you in the foot. Like if you know you've done something different, maybe don't show a photo of that.
Correct. Absolutely.
Because we can't, the judges aren't allowed to bring in, specialized information. Like if a judge is a specialist in tiger tanks, they can't come down super hard on a tiger tank and then sort of gloss
Correct.
over everyone else's. They have to sort of judge to the same standard.
Correct. You have to judge the
Impartially.
model impartially. You cannot bring your own knowledge into it. It's got to go by the reference. So, because there's inaccurate references out there that somebody may have used without knowing.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, most of us seem to be aware that, Mark 1 Spitfires in the Battle of Britain were green and brown.
Mm-hmm.
If somebody produced a model of it and there's their references that they did it on and it's purple with yellow spots, well, that's the reference they use. If it's something that they got as a picture off the net and that's what they thought it looked like, all the colours, then that's how they do it.
Do you remember when the Falcon wolves with the red and white stripes on the underside?
Yeah,
Yep.
the
When
JB44.
people used to think that it was black and white,
Yes.
Yes.
right?
You're rubbing in salt in the wound here. I built one in black and white.
Yeah, so I mean, like you can't sort of if the information comes out afterwards, like you obviously can't expect to go, aha, I deserve the trophy for that one because I did it right and the other guy didn't or something.
That's a
Look at
perfect
that.
example, actually, because, that was, I think it was Expert and Decals, produced their booklet in the Decals,
That's
and it showed black one, which I did do in 70-second scale, and it was a super detailed model. I'd scratch build an engine and everything for it. So now everybody knows, and the evidence come out that they were all red and white, and was actually red one as the aircraft.
Yeah.
However, if somebody was to still do that using those decals, put it in the model comp with black and white undersides, and they produced a book, the Expert and book, that shows that. That's the reference that the judge has to use. And it's how well has the model been produced compared to the reference being provided. The judge cannot bring in the fact and saying, oh, well, we all know that they're red and white now, and this is wrong. You can't score it down.
No.
It's judge it to the reference that's been provided. That's a perfect example. Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, it does rub salt in the wound, but thank you.
And of course, if you've entered a model into the competition, you can't be a judge of that particular section.
That's correct. Yep. So that's to keep that impartiality.
Yep.
And this is another reason why we keep asking, and especially this year. I think you said you've got how many models? 10?
10.
So that's probably spread over several classes.
Yeah.
So if you're there as a judge, I can't use you as a judge for those categories.
Yeah.
And because we expect that what you're doing is going to be the norm, the more judges we have, then the more flexibility that we're going to have, where we're going to have judges available to do that category because they don't have entries there. If there's more people, like I've got 10, you've got 10, for example, we may be ruled out of being able to judge perhaps 8 or 9 different categories. That makes it hard to get it done.
Yep.
So, again, that call out for volunteers for the night. It's this is going to be the year where we really, really need the volunteers in numbers for judging. And as I said, get a free feed out of it and a gift.
A special gift.
And you learn.
And you learn.
Yeah.
So
Well, I've done it once before in the Expo. Julian, you've done it a couple of times.
Yeah,
I've done it a lot.
You've done
I've done
it
it for many years. I did it.
Now, I know you're excluded this next one because you work Fridays.
Oh, where? Freaking work.
And you're working Friday as well.
Yeah, I am. I'm not sure if I'll be able to judge or not.
Looks like it's going to fall on my shoulders to carry the...
We'll
Yeah,
have to, carry the banner for us, Dave.
Why not?
Unfortunately,
Why not?
I'll be,
Well, hey, man.
Easy.
Lawrence had me at the word pizza.
Yeah, I think I've judged every year except for the very first year that I was at the event.
Yeah.
So I've done it, quite a few times. It's good fun when as the experienced one of the two judges, and you're with someone who hasn't been there before, and as you go along through the categories, they're going, "Oh, now I know what I've done wrong. I'm not going to win."
It is. Look, I would even say that one night judging at Expo will give you the same return of, I would say, and I won't put an exact figure up, but several months of being a club member at a club and continuously picking the brains of everybody there at every club meeting.
100%, Lawrence.
For several months.
100%. Yep.
So
couldn't agree more.
Yeah, it's an absolute win-win. But I do think We get the benefit of the additional judges, which help make it all work fantastically. But I think the real winners who walk out of the hall at the end of that night, and I'm not talking about the gift either, or the pizza, is just that knowledge that they've suddenly gained in that couple of hours. And the best thing is, when we've had good numbers, it's good to be able to say to people at 11 or 11:15, that's it, we're done. You can all go home.
Except for you guys.
Rather than saying, we've hit midnight, we're about to be kicked out, and we've still got 8 categories to be judged that haven't been looked at yet. Yeah. So, so the plea goes out there, if people want to do judging, please, this is the year we can use you.
All right, so the show is going to be on the 17th to the 19th of June, so 17th is Thursday. What time can people roll up on Thursday?
17th to Friday.
17th to Friday, sorry. Ooh, okay.
Yeah. So we'll be bumping in on 16th.
That's right.
So we'll be setting up. So we've asked that traders and everybody not come in till 4:30 to set up. The booking in, I believe, opens at 5 o'clock. Actually, if you just click on the event information, it should actually tell us there. Event schedule.
There we go.
So that's talking about Friday. So I think it's from about 5 o'clock onwards on the Thursday evening.
Yep.
We'll be taking in competition entries.
Okay.
And that will run through to 9 o'clock that night.
So that's also club displays. They can come in.
Club displays and everything.
Onwards,
4:30 onwards.
9.
Yep.
And also you got all day Friday to enter your model as well, up until what time?
We'll try and keep it as late as possible, but probably we'd want to have them all in by about 3.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, we're going to keep it open a little bit later than normal. Normally we close off around about 12:1.
Sure.
And look, we've never been really harsh. The event is there for the modelers.
It is,
And we just have to draw a practical line, where in the past it's been around 1 or 2.
Yeah.
But this year, because it's a Friday, and we're conscious that not everyone can take the time off, or they may only be able to get the afternoon off. If it's all in there by about 3, so long as we can get it all put into the system and do our quality checks and everything, make sure everything's in where it should be, then we're good to go. But the judging will kick off pretty much, I think, 5:30ish.
Yep.
So.
Terrific. Well, I've got to say a big thank you to all of the committee members who run the show. It's always a lot of work that's done behind the scenes for little or no accolades, and it's not very often that publicly we get the opportunity to thank you guys for actually doing such a wonderful job.
Thank you.
The three of us would personally like to thank the committee members for always giving us a spot to do the podcast there.
Yeah, that's great.
Which is fantastic, because it's a way for us to reach our constituents, for want of a better word. And I know that the last times we've done live broadcasts, I call it live in inverted commas, and when we've done shows from there, they've proved to be some of our biggest sort of downloads, those particular shows where people sort of listen in, so which is really great. So thank you from us as well for allowing us to sort of sit there as well and sort of prattle on as we are here now, so it's wonderful.
Not a problem. Thank you.
We'll get you back on the show probably on the Saturday or the Sunday just to see what the numbers are.
Yep.
And let's see if we can get you for 5 minutes, because I know you're terribly busy over that weekend.
Yeah.
But I'll find you in Shanghai. You're back in the chair again at the show. So
yeah, not a problem at all.
So thank you very much, Laurence, for coming. Really, really appreciate it.
Cool. Thank you.
No worries. Well, I think that's about wrapping us up for the today. Yep. We have gone for, coming for nearly 2 hours again. Another big show.
Yep. We're getting good at these big shows.
Before we sign off, I just want to mention that there's a whole heap of other fantastic podcasts to listen to. And you can find out where all those are by going to modelpodcast.com. It's got the full listing of all the other fantastic shows out there. Now, I also want to do a special reach out and thank you to all of our other podcast groups out there. We've formed quite a close relationship with all of them, and recently this week I needed to reach out to somebody and ask a question, and it was fearless and frank discussion, and the fact that we can be so open with each other, just like a bunch of old mates down at the pub, is just wonderful. So The individual who I'm talking about knows who I'm talking about, and thanks, mate. Really appreciate it. And but I know that we can sort of just reach out and chat to any of our podcast dudes anytime, and asking for help, asking for this, or even offer them some information to help. And we're all there to help each other. So it's a really unique and little club, I want to say, that we've got here. And I'm really looking forward to catching up with most of the guys when we all head to Omaha, which is Wagons Ho in about
4 weeks' time.
4 weeks' time, something like that.
Weeks'
Yeah,
time,
it's getting close. But let's get Model Expo out of the way first. That's a big one for us.
Yes.
So, time to sign off. So, I'll cut over to you. Laurence, you want to say goodbye?
Goodbye, and thank you for having me on the show.
No worries.
Appreciate it.
Ian?
See you all the next episode, guys.
No problem. Julian?
Bye.
Boom.
All right, thanks for listening, and enjoy your modelling, and we'll be back in a fortnight. No, we'll be back in a week.
Wait, yes.
Yeah, we get some special shows coming. Anyway, we're back when you see us on the airwaves. Catch you later, guys. Bye.